I'll give the call to the member for Mitchell.
I was after Parramatta, but that's okay. I rise today to raise the interesting state of schools in my electorate from growth figures that have been released recently and the feedback I've been receiving from principals over many years. New figures from the Department of Education reveal schools in the Mitchell electorate are bursting at the seams, as they have been for many, many years. 4 of our local public schools, Matthew Pearce, Rouse Hill, Hill and North Kellyville, are ranked amongst the 20 biggest primary schools in the state by enrolment, boasting over 1,000 students each. Now, many people will say this is not new, but there's been demountables at these schools for a long time now. And I'm concerned that the public infrastructure spending on public schools isn't adequate to meet the demands in growth areas, including these bigger than 1,000 public schools. Hill High School is one of the top 3 largest public schools in New South Wales, and that is the school, as we know, that has suffered from ancient infrastructure with asbestos. Also, there is still asbestos issues. Been cleared by the department, challenged, re-cleared, challenged, re-cleared, still no proposed infrastructure spending to lift this 60-year-old public school infrastructure up to where it needs to be in one of the biggest high schools in the state. What is the spend and how is it being done by the Department of Education, if not by the largest and oldest and most difficult infrastructure schools? There are high schools, of course, bigger than Hill High, new ones, but they're brand new infrastructure. And the dynamic of a growth area and a non-growth area having brand new schools and old infrastructure is, of course, a disaster. The last government announced and committed to the funding and building of the Box Hill Public School, and I welcome this. It's now being constructed at the moment in the growth area of my electorate. But the priority of the Department of Education to actually go back and fix long-standing older schools and their infrastructure isn't there. A lot of money is spent on the Department of Education in New South Wales every year. There's a lot of people who work for the Department of Education, but what is their program to update and upgrade older infrastructure schools? Where is it? Why isn't it there? It simply isn't sufficient, and it simply isn't getting the right result for kids in large and small schools around the state. Of course, we've had to have the private sector step in. I've been meeting with independent and private schools who are going to open schools in the north of my electorate at great expense, for capital being raised to do that, and we welcome that. That's part of our system to ensure those schools are able to open and enhance. But that should not be at the expense of re-updating infrastructure in older schools that is now 60 or 70 years old and clearly out of date. We do need a solution to this. The state government seems to have no apparent plan to fix this infrastructure backlog, and indeed, they're not keeping up with the current growth. And so we've got 2 large schools, we've got older schools with no sufficient pipeline of infrastructure upgrading. There is a lot of money being spent. Where is it being spent and why? The department needs to take some lessons from the Independent Catholic and other efficient systems on how to spend money and how to prioritise money.